accusing Democrats of saying we spend too much. For anyone that wants to entertain that thought, I ask you to think about the last time a person has said in this country that the government does too much for them, that their Social Security check was too high, that teachers are paid too much. When was the last time anyone has heard or seen that?
Another quote. President Biden already lowered the deficit by $1.7 trillion. They say his budget would cut the deficit by another $3 trillion by eliminating wasteful spending on big oil and pharma, we're told. But it is in fact our Democratic colleagues who prefer to maintain their massive subsidies for the elites and the wealthy in their so-called Inflation Reduction Act just last year. My friend from New York, Ms. Ocasio Cortez, said, quote, I ask you, think about the last time a person has said in this country that the government does too much for them. When was the last time anyone has heard or seen that? I'll say it. I'll say it right here. I don't want the government doing most of the things that the government is doing to interfere with the ability of the American people to carry out their lives. Federal, state, and local. When was the last time you had a bureaucrat show up and you said, oh joy, thank you, I'm really glad there's a bureaucrat here? When was the last time you were thankful for $32 trillion in debt, $100,000 almost for every man, woman, and child in America? Anybody thankful for $32 trillion in debt? Anybody? Anybody thankful for a border that's wide open being exploited by cartels while fentanyl comes in and kills our children? Everybody thankful for that Department of Homeland Security that doesn't actually secure the homeland? Everybody thankful for an FBI that went after Scott Smith and labeled him a domestic terrorist for daring to defend his daughter in a school board meeting because she was assaulted in a bathroom? Anybody thankful for the IRS knocking on your door, auditing the poor and the minorities 3 to 5 times more? People thankful for that? Are you thankful for the EPA or the Department of Interior that sent a man to prison because he had some ponds on his ranch?
On the panel. And with that, we'll go to my friend from Minnesota for any questions she may have for the panel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I was going to, I think first I just really wanted to point out, my colleague from New Mexico talked about, comprehensive immigration reform and all kinds of things in the bill from last year. But I just wanted to point out that the Democrats were in control of everything last year and still failed to do it. It did pass out of the House, but so I just wanted to point that out. So when you say we need to pass it, you had the opportunity last year and were unable to do that.
With the representative
For
yield?
just a moment, yes. I will yield.
Well, we did pass it out of the House. It was bipartisan. We could not get enough Republican senators because of the filibuster. We needed more Republican senators. So yes, we in the House, we were in control, but as you know, the Senate has its own rules, and we had Democratic support, but we did not have sufficient Republican support in the Senate. So thank you, yes.
But then it must not have been a bill that could have bipartisan support if you couldn't get it. But we won't go on that. I just had to point it on. I just had to point that, yes.
Gentlelady will yield for an observation. In 2010, in a lame duck session of Congress, the House once again passed Senator Durbin's bill about addressing the Dreamers. They did not pass it in the Senate with 3 Republican yes votes. And the reason they didn't pass it in the Senate, remember, they had a 60-vote majority in the Senate at the time. 5 Democratic senators voted no. The last time they had the opportunity, was swing and a miss. Thank you. I'll yield back.
And I just wanted to point that out because we keep talking about how we need this, but you had the opportunity and couldn't do it. Mr. McClintock, I don't mean to put you on the spot just the second you get here, but I did have some questions. I'm from an ag district, and there was some discussion before you got here about some of the, the effects on the ag industry that this bill might have. And, we're struggling, like ag industry and many industries are struggling with workforce issues. And I was just hoping that maybe to change the direction of the discussion. And can you talk about some of the provisions in the bill that could potentially help the ag industry and farmers with reliable access and retaining reliable workforce?
Well, first of all, it repeals the adverse effect wage rate regulations of the Biden administration. That the
Gentleman's mic on?
can you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now.
Yeah, it repeals the adverse effect wage rate regulations. There's also a provision that I believe was agreed to in negotiations the night before last that postpones the provisions of E-Verify until it can be certified there would be no adverse effect on farm labor supplies.
So there are some reasonable things in here that would help with those issues.
Oh, yes,
That
yes.
the rural communities are facing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks to the good work of a lot of our representatives from agricultural districts.
Thank you. And, I appreciate the repeal of the wage rule of the wage, and some bureaucrats in the Department of Labor with no experience in the field decided to set a so-called modest rule that would increase costs for farmers in my district by nearly 15%. This is on top of the regulatory onslaught brought on by this administration over the past 2 years, 2.5 years, as well as crippling inflation. And I'm deeply concerned about the administration's complete lack of attention to the needs of rural America. And so I'm really glad that this was included. And just wanted to maybe talk a little bit, and of course, then my computer freezes up. But, maybe just some how that border security, not only in the way of fentanyl, but if we secure the border, it helps our communities all the way from Minnesota, all over the country. And maybe we can just refocus and talk a little bit about the issues that are caused when we have, a free-flowing border.
Well, again, first of all, the numbers are already staggering, and I'm afraid they're going to be dwarfed this week as the borders completely collapse before our eyes. In the last 20, we had secure borders on Inauguration Day. By mid-afternoon, we didn't. Joe Biden repealed the Trump-era Remain in Mexico policy. He ordered cessation of any kind of activity on the border wall, and he ordered ICE to stop enforcing deportation orders. There are about 1.2 million deportation orders. People have gone through the process, been ordered, deported, and those orders are not being carried out. But the number that they've allowed into the country deliberately, 2.1 million. That is larger than the state of Nebraska. While the Border Patrol's been taking names and changing diapers on the border, overwhelmed by these numbers, 1.5 million known gotaways. These are people we watched on video cross the border or tracked crossing the border, but evaded any kind of interception or capture. That's 1.5 million. That is the larger than the state of Hawaii. That's all in just 28 months. I've never understood how the Democrats believe that our schools are going to be improved by packing classrooms with non-English speaking students, or how our hospitals are going to be made more accessible by flooding emergency rooms with illegals demanding care, or how our communities are made safer by introducing cartels into our neighborhoods and then making it all but impossible to remove criminal illegal aliens through their sanctuary policies. I don't understand how 300 deaths a day from fentanyl coming across the border, that's the equivalent of two 737 airliners crashing every single day in this country, and they don't seem to be the least bit upset about that. What are we doing to working families by flooding the labor market with cheap illegal labor? The impact of these policies is being felt by every American, as every Border Patrol officer has told me. They don't stay here. They go throughout the country. And now you're seeing the social safety net meant to help Americans in need collapsing before our eyes. And you're hearing that not from Fox News. You're hearing it from Lori Lightfoot and other Democratic mayors across the country.
Well, and I appreciate that, and I just... The concern is nationwide about the issues that come along with, and the crime that comes along with that open border. And I mean, we all were back in our districts last week, and I was talking to a sheriff in rural Minnesota in a small county, and he was talking about the fentanyl, and
There was a serial killer just caught in Davis, California. Came here as a UAC. He was part of the DACA program, apparently.
But I will, given that I've frozen up a little bit, I will yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Unanimous consent request to insert in the record a statement that explains how the E-Verify mandatory program will force many of our farms to go under. So
Without objection.
there's no spin here. Yeah.
Gentleman from South Carolina is recognized for any questions he cares to ask.
Chairman, Congresswoman Hawks has got another meeting she needs to get to.
That'd be fine. Well, gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.